In 3600 BBY, Emperor Vitiat's Sith Empire and the Galactic Republic, two of the biggest, most destructive military powers in history, fought for dominion over the galaxy. For over 40 years, grand technologies were built, weapons that could crack open the crusts of planets were constructed, and ships and fleets that could block out the stars flying their respective flags littered every corner of space, sowing chaos no matter the side. Bloody conflicts, cold war, and all-out havoc, while the two factions threw their punches over and over. But in wild space, far beyond the borders of the known galaxy, a new enemy began to amass in the darkness. Hundreds of years prior to the Great Galactic War, Vitiat in secret had projected his spirit beyond his physical body, all the way out into wild space and onto the planet Zakuul, looking for a rumoured fleet of undefeatable ships built by an ancient species known as the Iokath. There, he discovered a being simply known as Valkorion. He suppressed the original man and possessed the body with immeasurable power in the Force, as well as his own immortality, and then used his newfound existence to unite Zakuul under his rule, claiming himself their demon saviour, leading his newfound people out of the darkness of their tribes and into a new golden age of technology and prosperity, creating the Eternal Empire and leading as their immortal emperor. Now the emperor of two grand powers, Valkorion created a brand new order of Force users known as the Knights of Zakuul. A small group of these Force sensitives, the Scions, had the ability to see visions of both the past and future, and Valkorion used them to discover the hidden location of the ancient Eocathian armada. Floating there hidden, dormant in deep space, were thousands upon thousands of colossal battlecruisers, and although somewhat smaller in design than the grand capital ships of known space, they made up for their size with unparalleled utility that allowed these machines to become the greatest conquering tool the galaxy had ever seen. The Eternal Fleet, as it had become named by its new ruler, came found with a race of super advanced droids known as Gemini droids. These sentient machines were linked as one within a hive mind, allowing them to control the Eternal Fleet with precision and speed that was simply supreme to all organic beings. And so, Valkorion built a machine, known as the Eternal Throne, that allowed him, and only him, to activate and communicate with the Gemini droids, and gain complete control over the Eternal Fleet. As he activated their power, what he discovered was technologically beyond anything he had ever seen, a power that eclipsed his own Sith Empire, the Republic, and the ancient Sith that came before him. Firstly, the entire fleet was self-sustaining through sun generators, and to ensure their seamless maneuverability across wild space, each ship contained cloaking technology, allowing the entire armada to become invisible almost instantly, and with the ships being controlled by the Gemini droids, hundreds of them at a single time could be placed into a defensive walled formation, creating an impenetrable blockade. And whilst in this blockade, each cruiser would move in synchronicity with one another, meaning that if a single ship was damaged or destroyed, the defensive wall would almost heal the wound by adjusting its formation, but destroying even a single one was almost an impossible task. By the time of the Great Galactic War between Valkorion's former Sith Empire and the Republic, each faction's technological power was at its apex, with terrifying new weapons of war being created on a mass scale. But neither faction was enough to contend with the might of the Eternal Empire's Eternal Fleet. This same defensive wall that the Eternal Fleet created became an offensive behemoth. The Gemini droid synchronicity created a targeting prowess that could shred through even the greatest of capital ships, such as the Sith Harrower and Terminus cruisers, as well as the Republic's own Valor capital ships. Additionally, speed was not an ally against the Eternal Fleet. The speed of the Eternal Fleet was staggering. Only Imperial and Republic ships that were modded with Isotope 5, one of the rarest and most potent fuel substances in the entire galaxy, were capable of outrunning them. And despite its militaristic power, the Eternal Fleet had been used sparingly by Valkorion. In the early days of their activation, he used the Eternal Fleet to conquer most of wild space, but as time passed, the fleet had become more of a symbol to the Empire's power, and several of the battle cruisers were instead used to consolidate the Eternal Empire's financial strength, collecting tributes and taxes from those beneath them. Hundreds of years after its activation, the Eternal Fleet became outfitted with thousands upon thousands of war droids known as Skytroopers, who were placed into boarding pods that were capable of penetrating enemy capital ship hulls. Additionally, each cruiser now held ample starships, dropships and armaments which simply strengthened the Eternal Empire's invasion capabilities. And by the year 3636 BBY, Valkorion's two ambitious sons, Arkan and Thexan, convinced their father to launch raids upon known space to gauge its power. Valkorion reluctantly agreed, and the brothers took a small segment of the Eternal Fleet, decimating several worlds in the outer edges of their borders, and to judge their strength further, they made their way as far into known space as Korriban, launching a small raid consisting of a tiny portion of the Eternal Fleet and a battalion of the Knights of Zakuul and Skytroopers, and in just several days, the Eternal Fleet destroyed the orbital defences of Korriban, and the brothers led a crushing ground assault upon the Sith forces that protected the Academy. This attack was so elusive and swift that the Eternal Fleet got out without a single trace from anybody, forcing the Republic and the Sith Empire into a ceasefire to hunt down their invisible enemies, and the Sith Emperor, who they rightly believed to be behind it all. The Sith and Jedi leaders Darth Maul and the hero of Tython led a scouting force into wild space upon a Terminus-class Sith destroyer that touched the edges of Zakuul space. This violation prompted the entire Eternal Fleet to decloak and destroy the ship, with Valkorion taking the two hostage. The survivors who had escaped returned to known space to warn their factions of the monstrous fleet that came out of nowhere, but by the time word had spread, Valkorion was assassinated and Arkan became Emperor, and convinced his people that the Republic and the Sith were at fault, and that the Eternal Empire would avenge Valkorion. With the full Eternal Fleet under his control, Arkan began the full conquest of the known galaxy, and within one single year, the Imperial capital of Droman Kars and the Republic capital of Coruscant were under the blockade and control of the Eternal Empire. Both factions were forced into surrendering under Arkan's might, with their militaries being heavily restricted, and being made to pay extreme financial tribute in return for Zakuul's ceasefire. With almost every major world held hostage by the dreaded Star Fortresses, the galaxy had become subjugated by the rule of the Eternal Empire. Revolts simply were impossible, and the Eternal Fleet made Zakuul the greatest military might in existence, and for over 5 years, Arkan ruled with an iron fist, until the Eternal Empire's one weakness was finally exposed, hidden away in the belly of the planet Zakuul itself, waiting for its chance to destroy the Eternal Fleet, once and for all.